It's just so much, man. There's so many hoops to go through with the state, and there's no help for fathers. It is very difficult for fathers out there. I see why certain dads are considered a deadbeat dad. My name's Casey, and see, I've had daddy issues for 8 years now. so, it just kind of started when I met a girl, and we started seeing each other. It was I'm an honest and upfront person at that time in my life, and so it was a committed relationship. We were together for about 3 months, and she got pregnant. Now we were, it was an iffy. Like, it wasn't like, hey, this is going to be, we're serious. It was neither of us in a great position in life that, we needed to start bringing children into the world. We were already arguing a lot with each other. I was getting a lot of red flags from her, but, and then I think one of the
Yeah, yeah. And that's tough too, because when that happens and it's so new, it's like you try to make it work, even though you guys are arguing and fighting, and you kind of, if you weren't pregnant, it would have been so much easier just to kind of go your separate ways and do your thing. But
Oh yeah, and I most certainly should have, but again, I was at the point in my life where this was the fun that I was looking to have. So it wasn't bad. It was where I wanted to be, and um, But then once you have a kid, everything changes. So I never planned on having kids in my life. That was my plan. Um, I lived kind of wildly. A lot of the men in my mom's side of the family all die in their 40s. So I kind of grew up with this: I'm going to be dead in my 40s. I'm going to die of a heart attack like everybody else, and that will be it. So I didn't plan on having kids because I never wanted to leave that burden on children. But again, you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. It had nothing to do with me. And, ended up having a baby girl, and keeping, with the mother through the pregnancy, which is a big deal to me, because I only chose not to have kids, not, because I didn't think I would be good. I loved kids. I babysat growing up. So, it was just a natural reaction for me. Um, so I was very family orientated. So this chick really liked that about me. And sure enough, we end up pregnant. Now, the thing that really gets to me is that men have no rights to an unborn child whatsoever. So, they talk about the abortion and Roe versus Wade and bringing it back to the states, and pro choice. I'd always been for abortion up until, having a kid. At that point, when, somebody threatens that they're going to have an abortion of your child and there's nothing that you can do about it as a father, it's messed up. And I don't think people realize it enough, that, fathers have no say whatsoever.
what you also don't hear about that often is it's usually the reverse. It's usually the dad saying, go get an abortion, whatever.
They'll get the
Yeah.
abortion. And that's literally why abortions were available, because businessmen with wives and children wanted to go sleep with secretaries and other women. And when they got pregnant, they needed a solution to be able to do something about it. So it became huge industry and quiet. The thing that, business wise, that never understood that they didn't capitalize on the fetuses. And once they do that, then the market for baby making it's going to be sick. So let's hope that medical industry doesn't flip and say yes, because they're using stem cell research now, most of it out of this country. But think about when they realize that it's a profit to go have an abortion, and how many women are going to now do this, not just as a living, but do it as a living to get pregnant as a goal, so that they can cash in twice. You know, so abortion is going to be a real issue if it doesn't get nipped in the bud.
How old were you when you had your, or when she was pregnant?
8 years ago, so I am 44. So
All right, so
36.
you made it past the 40s of the men in your family.
I Yeah, so I didn't get pregnant when I was a kid. I didn't have the accidental
Yeah.
birth as high school girl, and that's the biggest thing that scared me. Like, oh, I'm not gonna have sex because I'm gonna be the one that the one time you do have it and you're gonna get pregnant. That's gonna be me, 100%. So all growing up, it was just trying to be very careful. My grandmother thought I'd be the only child to have a kid. My cousin was real big into the horses and horse races, and figured he was going to marry a horse. My other cousin was not. My sister was a professional student. Year after year after year after scholarship for years, just kept going to school, more school. So she's like, she'll never stop going to school. And so my grandmother always thought that I was the one that would, eventually get somebody knocked up, probably. But so back on to 8 months, 9 months of gestation. Stuck around. I got us an apartment. Moved her in, got her to her doctor's appointments, went to all the stuff, built a nursery. Painted it up. My mother and dad threw a baby shower for her with a lot of my mom's friends because her parents were in Virginia and didn't really come down. Um, at this time, there's still things that I didn't know about her. Right? So, you know, getting towards the pregnancy, she went through a lot of depression of the pregnancy. She went through postpartum depression. Um, there's a lot of things that have to get worked out in her head because there's been a lot of other issues. So, move forward a few months after the child's born and we're having our issues, I come to find out that she has a son.
She didn't
Huh?
disclose that in the beginning of when you guys met.
No. So when we met, she had said, she's got an ex-husband, and this was his son, and she helped raise him since he was an infant. Okay. And then the other one was her sister's kid that the family helped raise. That there was another daughter that was around, um, and then that she had a miscarriage, a baby who died of a heart problem about 3 or 4 days or so after birth. So she had a cesarean section. So I knew about that one, and we had talked about it with the doctor, but literally in the doctor's office, she did not talk about the other kids. Um, just I mean, so much about hiding it until I was listening to Bubba the Love Sponge, and he had the lawyer on, and a lady had called up and said, will I be able to get visitation rights to my adopted son? I've been raising him since he was 8 months old. And, he said, no, but you won't have to pay child support either. And I'm thinking, well, I found these child support, payments that she's been making or back due on for the son. So when I found that out, I'm like, wait, well, why is she paying child support on a son that's not hers? But this lady says that she won't have to. So eventually I found the guy and called him and was like, hey, is Christopher her son? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, are you sure? He's like, I was there in the delivery room. But I'm like, but do you know that it's hers? And he's like, yeah, he told me the whole story. And, we're actually pretty good friends now. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So me and him chit chat once a week or so, and hit it up. I talk to her son because they are half siblings. So my daughter, even though it's 18-year difference. He's like 22, 23 now. Right. So he was 17 at the time when I met her, and then the daughter was 22, and ended up the guy telling me, he's like, yeah, no, that's her daughter too. So I meet with the daughter, I talk with her, I get all kinds of information. She's gun ho, she hates her. So she's sending me all sorts of stuff. Come to find out, the child was molested when she was a year old.
Oh,
So the mother lost custody of her and went to the grandparents. The grandparents were requesting child support from the mother. Um, it was just a whole big incident. They never found out exactly who did it because the kid had a speech impediment after a year old. I mean, just like all this really whack stuff. Like, first of all, anybody so the day that I found out from him that the child was hers, I go back to the house. We had gotten into a little, scuffle, argument, whatever, not a physical altercation, but just she was holding my keys from me. She wouldn't let me leave. The police came. She had been drinking. She was going to leave. I was like, listen, officer, stay here. Let her stay here. I will leave. Just get my keys. That's all I ever wanted to do is leave. Just let me go. Because she was acting really nutty from literally bipolar, I feel, and the postpartum depression, and then finding out all this. So I went to her and I was like, hey, listen, did Christopher come out of your womb? Right? I mean, how much more specific and precise can you say it without? And she was like, no. I'm like, listen, done, done. Everything's been filed already. Already filed and paid for my lawyer. Like, this is nuts. That's insane for somebody to deny their
Right.
children.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend one more day raising a child with you. Like, I already had these really weird suspicions and all this kind of other stuff. But for 9 months, you can't do anything. I couldn't let up. I couldn't, give a hard time. Um, so I was good the whole 9 months. I worked 2 jobs, to make all the ends meet, you know. And so the best thing that happened, the attorney that I had hired filed the UJJAC rights for our county in Palm Beach. Um, Strongest move that I can suggest to any father that is fighting, battling, either hiring an attorney or doing it themselves, when it happens in these first months, right away, once the separation takes place, if the woman leaves, anything happens, file UJJAC rights for your county, and that gives you the jurisdiction of where the case will be heard.
Yeah.
Right. So she took off with the kid, left the state. Right. Threatened me about it. I'd always been in her life, my daughter's life. So was there from birth. All the way up. Never spent time away. She threatened me with leaving for a few months. And this, I went to my lawyer, and I paid him for an emergency motion to prevent her from leaving. Those get denied because you can't file emergency motion unless literally they've got a passport and they're on their way to another
And now,
country.
are you guys still living together at this point, or?
Um, no, just after that, I left and never came back.
Okay.
So I never came back after I found out the truth, and I confronted her with the truth, and she still denied it. I never wanted to come back. I have nothing more that I ever want. The kid's there, the child's born, 50-50. That's half my kid right there, and I need nothing more to do with you. That's 3 months and 9 months that, is not as much time invested as people who have spent years together.
Right. Right.
Right, and have built a full-blown relationship and everything. So, it's a little different when, but, in the reverse, the courts never get to hear the backstory. Like, oh, you guys were just kind of flinging up together and this came about. They think, oh, well, a married couple of people have been together. They even assume that we're married, all the time. And it's like, look at your document.
Right.
This was never a marriage.
Read the paperwork.
Like, I mean, God, these judges don't do a job. And give me a minute and I will get us into, that entire shelf over there is full of my court documentation of this
That's
year.
crazy. Yeah.
So so we'll say she left the state. She was gone for about 3 months. I got rid of the attorney I had because he wasn't hand holding me enough. Right, I'm a mess. I just lost my kid. I mean, and I'm like close to this baby, right? I mean, like I'm feeding her, I'm taking her. Because again, her mother's going through the depression and stuff. So like I'm just tight with her. I don't know. I just always was. And it's one of the problems that the mother has now is that we are close. And so she took off with her, and I'm a little bit of a mess. I get a more expensive lawyer. I'm throwing it all, everything I got. What else am I going to do? And so we took the filings. We made her have to come back, right, for a court hearing. So she left the child up there, comes back for this court hearing. I sweet talked her to make her come back to kind of do all the stuff that she needed to appear to this hearing. So the judge says, listen, you've only got a couple more weeks until by law you're not allowed to be out of the state. Technically, you can leave for 60 days without it being a violation. You can travel, right? So she based her that, remind you, She'd been through court before with a previous husband and her kid. She'd been through courts before with molestation charges and court systems. And so she kind of knows this industry a little bit. Um, so she was up, so she worked at a job when I met her for like 6, 7 years, bus driving and doing the routing for the buses. And it was pretty stable. After that, she kind of couldn't get back into a job swing, and then really hasn't yet. Um, but so she took off, went to Virginia, was away for over the 2 months. Came back for the court hearing. Judge says like you have to be back. She wasn't back, so we filed our motion for her contempt based on that, and it got granted. She came back with the child for that court date, and the judge banned her and gave me full custody of a 1-year-old
Oh,
kid.
wow.
Like right then and there, as a single dad, I got full custody, and she couldn't get her custody back until she had residence in Palm Beach County. And we tried to say have to have a job, but the judge was like, she doesn't have to have a job technically, but does have to reside back in Palm Beach County and whatnot. But she is capable of earning a wage. She has, a degree and has, financial capability so that when she owes me money, it could be paid. So there's no reason not to, because the judge already saw through. This judge was great.
And then if she doesn't pay, it's gonna be, yeah, and then it would be back child support, I'm assuming.
Right. So I got her full time. Her mom didn't come around much. She was getting her stuff together, which is fine. And I always gave her the availability of time to be with her daughter whenever she wanted. But she couldn't most of it. She chose to go to school, so she got grants for going to South University to get legal studies. So I'm raising our kid by myself with no help, while she's going to school to get more of a legal degree that she's going to use to write motions against me on almost a monthly basis. I get held in contempt every other month.
Really?
She's written 8 motions to relocate our child away from me and try to permanently take her away from me and re-reside with her somewhere else. 8 of them.
Wow. And at that point, though, the judge wouldn't accept a motion like that, especially when you've been raising this child at this point. It would just go back to a 50-50, or she would have to work her way up to a 50-50.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, right. So it goes back to 50-50 when she starts to get herself established, and then she finally starts to pick her up more. And, now she's keeping her weeks completely. And, my time frame goes from a lot to back to even, which is fine. I mean, I am not, opposed to that, because that's only fair. I don't expect to take more time away from her than she should from me. I don't, want to give up one day less than my 50%, and I will take any day more than I can. Um, but she, just relentlessly files to take her away from me. Her only motive is just taking her away from me full time. Everything she ever files is to bash me and try to take her
I'm
away.
so surprised, though, because with her other two kids, it doesn't even seem like she was around. So for her to put in the effort for this child is just like, it's just
Right.
weird.
So in the 6-month-old range, my guess was she's going to leave her when she's 4. Right. And it hasn't. She stuck around longer, making things more difficult. But again, it's her choice for sticking around, and that's fine. Now, I feel like things are going to get more difficult because she's having issues with raising the kid, lying. The kid understands a lot of lies and then sees all the deceit. So today, for instance, we can work from today and go backwards, and we can work from the beginning and move our way up. So she didn't bring her to school today, right? She's missed, I don't know, 60, 70
On her
days of
mom's side.
school on her
Yep.
on her mother's
Yep.
side. She's missed like one day, 2 in her maybe entire school on my weeks, right? But misses time all the time. We can reverse a little bit. First grade, she didn't feel like she should bring her to the school that's in my district, because I won the school district. And she's relocated herself 50 miles outside of that
And she just
range.
thinks she can do this, and the court's not going to fucking say anything.
I hate to say it, but the court yet has heard my motion.
Oh my God.
It got lost in the court system.
Wow.
Now, remind you, she files everything. Now, she always files on top of my files. So every lawyer I had, everything gets lost because she will file and counter onto every motion I put. So then we have to counter her counter and then get something scheduled to be heard so that that can get dismissed so that we can finally get heard on the first
Gotcha.
case in which we filed. That takes a year to hear something small. So she didn't bring her to school for 3 weeks in a row on her weeks. Neither. So she tried to relocate her into a school that's by her house without telling me. Just one day I get the call from the school, first day of school, kid's not here. Okay, thanks. I have to call around all the schools in her county to find them and send them my driver's license and a copy of the court order so that they can confirm or deny whether my child is in their school or not. I find the school that she is in. I go there the next day because that, of course, takes a full day. I show up with my court paperwork, the information, and I say, I appreciate you taking in a child that was dropped off to you, but this is not her school. She is registered already at another school. Here's the court order paperwork. I don't know what the mother gave you, but if I find my child in this classroom again, you guys are going to be under lawsuit. I wasn't mean. I wasn't really rude. I gave them the fact. They were all great. They brought the sheriff's office. Everybody was there for it, and that was it. I picked up my kid. I brought her to my school. And then her mother decides to not bring her to any school for 3 weeks on her weeks. My week, she went to school. Her mother week, she stayed home. My week, she went to school. Her mother week. So I file a motion to the courts. And the courts send it to a magistrate. The magistrate's waiting because, this everything's still backed up from COVID. My mother writes a letter to the judge, right? This child is, because every day now, my kid's not going into any school. What do? I can't get truancy involved. The schools can't do anything. Literally, she just keeps the kid home every day, and then she's going to fall farther and farther behind. Kindergarten, I tried to get her tested for dyslexia because I saw it. Writing backwards, just a lot of the letters. I had it as a kid growing up. So it's like early recognition. Let's get her into some programs. Kindergarten was just a joke. It was 2020.
Yeah.
So nothing got done. First grade, they didn't really see much, but the mother refused to allow any kind of acknowledgement that, there might be a learning disability. So she wouldn't accept that, right? And still to this day, the school's like, listen, you really got to get a professional guidance done so that we can put her in 504 classes and IEPs. So again, I couldn't get the mother to sign paperwork, doctor after doctor, because they're requiring both parents' signature in order to test the child, until I found one that wouldn't. And they're like, yeah, we'll take your money. I'm like, really? That's it? I'm like, there you go. Have it. Tested. She's positive, little ADHD. Her dyslexia is a 2-day test. And the mother takes me to court on contempt for going to along with like 13 other contempts, right? So when she piles these things in, she writes 125 page motions and submits them. And it's like, God, I lived through this stuff and I don't want to have to read it. And she blatantly lies in these forms time and time again. And you're like, yeah, do you think the judge would finally see something? So the first judge that ruled in the case pro my favor, love this guy, changed divisions. So we had a division change, right? Then we went through a few different judges and a couple magistrates since then. We had a court order that was for us to go back for determining child support. We're supposed to go solely to determine child support back when she starts kindergarten, right? So daycare was for each of us to be provided because she was living farther away. So she went to one daycare and she was like, well, you have to use my daycare because some of these daycares are like, you got to come full time. You can't do part times, right? So the ones that the state was paying for, because she's a single mother and I'm a single father, I don't get help. She's a single mother, she gets help. So the state offers to pay, but the child has to be there all the time. So she's trying to take me to court saying, well, I have to bring her to her daycare. I'm like, I'm not driving 50 miles to go put a kid in daycare. I have an agreement with my place that does it every other week and it's right across the street from my house. Like, that's where I take her. you know. So we had that fight. We never ended up getting back in front of the judge to determine child support. Now she owed me like 4 or 5 grand. We had that put into an abatement account. This lawyer did it a little better. The first lawyer just washed it. I think she had like 6 grand that she owed me. And we were just so happy to get full custody. My lawyer's like, "You'll never see this money anyway. Just take the
Isn't that
kid."
crazy? Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I'll never see it anyway." I have my kid back. Like, I mean, I'm crying. I mean, it's just like, whatever. It was huge. So I was like, whatever. I don't care. I'll take the kid. And so the second lawyer did a little better when he put it in an abatement account for us, meaning I'll never see it, but if I ever end up owing, it gets taken off of that. And that's what happened. So they did a calculation. They said, "Oh, well, Mr. Fan, you're going to owe her $50 a month for child support." I'm like, "Okay, but we're going to take it off of this 3,000 whatever dollars that she owes you, and you'll reconvene when the kid goes to kindergarten to redo child support then calculations." So when that time came up, we went to go do mediation. She refuses to bring her financial affidavits. Well, how are you going to do a child support guideline without your financial affidavits? Plus, at these times, I was still having her like 60% of the time, 70% of the time. It was weaning down from there. But when it does end up becoming pretty 50-50, which it is now, I don't care if there's a day or two difference. I keep track consistently, but it's only because I know she's striving for like one extra day of anything. And we went back on a contempt because of one day difference where she went to Virginia with the child. They were late coming back. And I'm like, keep her. Don't rush. Don't drive through the night. Don't drop her off here late. Keep her. I'll get her the next day. Not a problem. Do what's best for the child. Right. So when I went to go do my makeup day, she tried to take her for an entire weekend. She's like, no, it's not, you don't get a makeup day. You don't get a makeup day. You owe me. And then just made a huge scene about it. It's taking me to court. Spent, hundreds of dollars on
Oh,
stuff.
she filed the contempt on that.
Yeah. On that day for me having and then that's one of the days I took her out of school because she threatened that she was going to pick her up Friday and then keep her all weekend. Like, if you think that I owe you a day, you make up one day, you don't get all weekend.
Right. Now, is she doing this pro se? I know you said she went to school and she learned all this stuff, right?
Yes. So she went to school for it. So she knows how to file. She knows how to use the portal. In the very beginning, she filed abuse charge. So like it got worse. Like, so when she went to Virginia and took off and I had the case against her here, she filed a case against me in Virginia. Right. Because she's filing for child state benefits in Virginia. She's telling the judge here, "I'm just gone on vacation." While she's up there, she's filing for the WIC. She's filed a case against me, a restraining order against me, which they grant.
Wow.
So I have a case against me in Virginia that I have to hire a lawyer for in Virginia. I have to pay my lawyer down here that's working on my case to now also work on my case for Virginia. He's like, "You can't go there because it's a Commonwealth state. You go, you're showing guilt. They can literally arrest you at the courthouse for what she's claimed you've done."
Oh, so you're just not even supposed to show up.
Right. So I don't show up, but I have to hire a lawyer to represent me in the state. So, it's all bogus because I was not even in the state of Virginia where she claimed this stuff happened.
Right.
Right. So, it's asinine how the court system, where I could literally open up a phone book to any county, file case and suit against somebody and claim that they raped me. And they literally have to defend themselves now.
Yeah, and the shitty thing is there's no repercussion for her for making those false accusations.
So I ended up winning the case here in Florida and getting full custody before that one got heard. So she never went back up to try to finish it because, she lost. So, the lawyer was nice. He gave me a couple bucks back because he literally didn't have to do anything once he got there, except for dismiss the case. But, it's still aggravation.
Oh, absolutely.
It's still why I have to wear a hat because I'm losing my hair. And it's stuff that I've had to go through. So,
but you've had to go through it taking care of your kid full time. as a single dad, you also have to pay your bills. You also have to, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
do so much.
yeah, and
Don't
I'm
you?
living with my
Yeah,
parents, so I got to do what I got to do. So it's just me and the kid in the room together, and I go to work, and she goes to daycare, and it's just so much fun. Man, I just love this kid, and she's just so happy. Even now, 8 years later, she's still very happy. She doesn't like to just talk about you know questions over there. She really separates the two locations and how she acts for different spots. And I had a daycare provider say, they know the difference on how to act at Nana's house or your house or daycare or school. They're smart kids. They know what they can do and what they can get away with at different locations of where they're at. So, they do adapt. Um, but it's just been a nightmare because, she files so much and I'm paying these lawyers everything I make just to go through the legal system and they're not getting stuff done.
right. That's the
Again,
frustrating
stuff
part.
stuff got filed, got missed up for COVID. It's like, so COVID came and she kept her. She's like, oh, I'm not going to give her back to you until this most is over. And I'm like, no, I had to go file a contempt charge for her not giving her back because I had to go there with the police for her not to open up the door to the police. And then, I find out that this is civil. So the cops can't do anything. They can't open the door. They can't make her. I can't get my time back, but they can document it. And these are the things that I learned from the police and getting my documentation. And I mean, I've got notebooks. I got, full blown calendars,
Yep.
right? So every one of these is a different year on my calendars.
Jesus.
I take notes there. I do notes in a book. When my daughter was 2 years old, I started an email address for her. And I tell a lot of the guys in the groups this stuff, but start an email for your kid. Send them the photos of stuff you do. Send photos of things that they're growing up. When her mom files stuff, I'll put that in there. Sometimes if it's text message things, I get my feelings out in the email so that when she's 16 or 17 and she's like, fuck you, daddy, I hate you, I can't stand you, daddy, it's gonna be like, hey, open up this email.
So you set up the email for her to get later on in life. Gotcha,
Right.
gotcha, gotcha.
And
Yep.
again, I keep thinking I'm going to die at 40, right? So I'm going to die and I'm going to leave this kid behind. I got to give her some notes. I got to give her, lessons in life, activities that we did, the fun memories that she's not going to remember as she keeps getting older.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing I turned into. I turned into a detective. I'm so organized with all my notes now, and I had to start saving everything and filming and just so much. And it sucks that you even have to do that, but
It is. That's the worst, is that I got to relive it. And then I got to try to get in front of the courts and find it all to give them. Last year, I went pro se. I was just so pissed. So we get this judge that I have now to hear her. She files a contempt against me, and the judge doesn't understand it, right? Because she just writes random. It just goes on, and then it doesn't make a point, and then she makes another one, and it goes on, and it's just odd. So she didn't understand the motion. So instead of like filing for a query or something, she files for trial. I get prepped for trial with my lawyer, go over what could she possibly do. I don't know what she could possibly want. This stuff doesn't make sense, but we have to prepare for everything that she put in this because anything of it can be heard. So the judge gets up there and she's like, well, can you start explaining some of the stuff? Da, 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 da. She's like, well, I don't get this. She's like, Ms. Leftwich, I'm not really getting what you're trying to do here. Can you, what do you want? Let's say we find Mr. Fan guilty. What do you want, for your contempt? And she's like, well, I want more money. She's like, I don't get any money. He doesn't pay for anything. I do this all by myself, right? And she's like, well, that's a change in the parenting plan. Like, that's not a contempt. You can't just get more money. She's like, well, can I get more time? She's like, she's school aged. I should have more time, right? She just automatically thinks that because the kid goes to school that she should have more than 50% of the time and I should be paying her child support. She does not understand how she's not collecting money.
yeah.
Right? Like, everything is like, I don't get it. I don't get any money from you. How is this possible? Right? And then these programs are teaching her that, the women are getting paid for all these kids. and she's not and doesn't understand it. So she's filing. Why doesn't he pay me? Why isn't so? The judge was like, no, again, that's a change in the parenting plan. You have to go into that. You got to file a motion for changing the parenting plan to, get the child support. Um, and then she's like, well, is there anything else? She's like, well, can we put him in jail?
What?
And the judge is like, I'm not even a criminal lawyer here. Like, no, no. And then she's like, that's it. Then, Miss Leftwich, we're done. So my lawyer didn't say a word. It cost me, I don't know,
And
$3,000
all that time,
maybe
yeah.
or so for the whole thing. Plus, I think there was a motion attached to that didn't get heard of mine. So that got dismissed. We file for my legal fees on it.
Oh, yep,
And we
yep.
go in front of the magistrate, and the magistrate listens to it. Because we also had 3 more cases by another judge, one of them that she didn't even show up for. So the judge granted us our court costs for that, right? And then there was like 2 more that she just wasn't prepared for. So she ended up just dismissing them in front of the judge because she wasn't getting anywhere with them. Because again, she files so many, and then it took 6 months, and then she's got like 6 more in the chamber, and she doesn't even remember what those other 6 were. So those 2 got dismissed, and we filed for my legal fees from the judge, and we won. The magistrate granted me $6,000 in legal fees. So I put a lien against her house,
Oh, wow,
because
yeah.
she's so proud that she's got this house, and she's married to a guy who's the house is in the name of. So she got remarried to somebody that she met, a few months, whatever, um, because she feels like it makes her look better in court to be a married woman, and it makes her seem stable.
Yeah, hopefully, her having to pay your attorney fees will get her to stop filing all
Stop.
those
You
fucking
would think,
motions.
but she didn't.
Wow.
So she had. It gets more twisted. You're not going to believe it. So remind you, I have a motion in that went to the magistrate for her not taking her to school, right? And my mom wrote the letter to that magistrate about, this poor child is missing all the school. And where's the person looking out for the interest of the child?
Yep.
Please, let's get this heard for the benefit of the child so the kid can get into the proper education and the help that she needs. So the magistrate ended up reclusing herself off of the case. Whether it happened to do with the letter or not, but the letter became notified and it had to get sent to all parties because it was a communication done to a judge that I guess you're not allowed to do, which I didn't know at the time because I always hired lawyers until I actually became pro se and spent hours reading the web pages of the judges themselves, the state, filing web pages, and as much stuff as I can get into because I've just now become a lawyer. Did I realize that you're not allowed to communicate to the judge directly? So, you know, again, so she holds me in contempt for my mom sending a letter further down the line, which, got dismissed. So we're at the judge now, the magistrate now. She's required to pay. We have to go now back to the magistrate to determine how much she's going to pay. Right. So she has a job. She's actually working for the state. She got a job probably because she's been calling DCF so many times. And she actually got a job now working for DCF because, hey, girlfriend, they got a sign-on bonus. I hear you be calling us a lot. So, why don't you come on down, give me my name, and we're going to put you down and get you the signing bonus, and we each going to win.
Yep.
Right? So she gets a job at DCF. She starts flaunting that she's got a job at DCF. Do you know what I can do to you?
Oh, no.
Ooh. Oh, God, yeah. You know what I can do to you? Ooh, I'm working in DCF now. I do child protective services. I got a badge. I work for the state. I got state insurance. I do this. I got ooh. Next thing I know, I get a letter in the mail from the IRS. They've opened up an investigation case on child support against me, and I send them copies of the court order. And that was it. It's done. Nothing again. Right? My mom's getting threats about the working for the state. The daycare provider, she was talking to me about, we run daycares. I don't like that lady over at that daycare. And then I get an open investigation against me, anonymously reported.
Of course. Yeah.
Right. With things and terminology that only the mother's been using.
Tell me she got fired from her job for this.
We're getting
Yeah,
there,
okay. I can't wait.
right? So, me, a law abiding, straight edge, on point citizen, opens up an investigation with the Attorney General for the Department of Children and Family Services. I go to the AG. I give them the information, the detailed stuff. They look into it. They do this investigation. She gets called aside. They come to find out, she didn't use her credential logins to look into the case at all. Now, they couldn't really determine and find from the filing because there was a maiden name of hers that she used and a married name difference that confused the system. And I'm like, how do you guys end up having somebody that works for the state that has lost custody of three kids? At one point, in her life, she has lost custody of all three of her children. And now she works for the state, getting to be able to take other people's children away from their
Very
families.
good
You
point.
people are sick.
Yeah.
They're like, whoa, we didn't cross state reference. I'm like, well, one of them was here in Florida. So later on, when the judgment was due on how much she can afford to pay on the judgment, we go to court for that. And she's like, oh, I quit my job. I was so afraid and intimidated by Mr. Fan that, I had to quit my job. Well, the important thing then is who's got insurance on her. You had state covered insurance. We used to have Medicare. But now you got a state job and you took the state insurance. So who's got the insurance? Which she's never provided me the insurance cards for her since her entire life. She's always tried to keep that stuff from me. I have email after email saying I'm only allowed to use that in emergency purposes, and she has to call me if I ever need to get the number. I'm not allowed to have the card, and I can't make appointments, and I can't do any of this. Right? This is what she tells me. I have a court order for her to provide it, yet she has not. Has she gotten in any trouble? No.
Right.
Anything ever happened? No. Have I ever gotten them? No. I actually found out that she still actually had the coverage. She never lost Medicaid coverage while she was working for the state. I contacted the state, the insurance company. I just got a card sent out to me, and I have her covered
Dude,
with my own card.
Shit.
Right. So she never gets in trouble with the courts. She always files and gets heard. She always puts in motions how bogus and blown up they are. She gets heard. We always have to go in front, So after my lawyer's performance with that and not getting the questions that I specifically asked him to say, like who's got the insurance, I was like, when did you quit your job? And he asked her, have you ever quit a job before? Yes. And like that was it. He never had a follow up question. Right. I'm like, I'm paying you $400 an hour. And I really thought he had a brain fart. He lost what his position was. He kind of had to sit down. He's getting older in age, so if there was going to be any kind of fight, I didn't pay him his last bill.
I think he probably was like, he probably knew too. He's like, yeah, you're good.
He never asked me for it. So I offered him like $5,000 of the 7,000. And he tried to come back with like another number. And then I got my own records. So when you hire a lawyer, you can't go on the state site and take a look at everything that's been filed on your behalf. Your lawyer is only allowed to look at that. So when I went pro se and got my own legal rights to look into my own case and everything that had been filed and every response that's been there and not have the lawyer involved, I found stuff that he never got to. He didn't finish. He didn't follow up on. He didn't do like that 2-year contempt for her not going to school. Just because that magistrate left from the division, it should have gotten kicked back to the new magistrate, and it never did. So literally, it's sitting there in limbo 2 years later. My only contempt that I've filed against her for the things that she has been doing and get heard about. I always have to go to defend myself against the things that she is accusating and bringing up. Like, the other big issue for the one that we just went to was for going on a trip. So for my daughter's birthday, I tried to go on a cruise with her to the Bahamas. We've got a little hop, skip, and a jump cruise overnight from West Palm into the Bahamas and back. And I actually last time went on that boat and I made him my client. So it worked out really good for me business-wise to go on the boat.
That's awesome.
And so I told her that I would go with her and her friend's dad, a friend of mine's dad, her father, whatever. So the kids are friends. We're friends. It's a very similar situation that he has to me. And his kid's like 2 years older, so I get to watch all the stuff I'm gonna have to go through,
Right.
what he's already gone through.
And the shitty thing
But
is usually it starts like calming down a little bit. Yours, you just seem like it's still just
they
going.
have, but she's been so resentful and spiteful, right? So we filed the contempt, the motions about her filing frivolous and vexatious motions, right? That's the one that we won on her, frivolous and vexatious motions that she's been filing against me. And she takes all these things to court, and they either get dismissed or I have to go and get hurt on them. So now that I'm pro se, I want them all to go. I am ready to face the judge every fucking month. I will go just so that the judge can hear her shit every month. I don't want to be the only one, and I'm not paying a lawyer anymore. So I feel the weight has been lifted off my shoulders so much that I just study what I've got in front of me, and I let her just open her mouth, and that's it. And I end up trying to do the best I can. I won the last case, so my nephew was getting bar mitzvah. That's a once in a lifetime passes way for a Jewish male at 13, and so I couldn't go on the cruise. One of the orders in our first order states that neither parent can remove the child out of the state without the other parent's permission. Now, that was to protect me because the mother ran off with the child once before. So, in order to prevent that, this got put in. But you can't say the mother's not allowed to leave the state without the father's permission. It has to be both ways. So that's how it got written. So she had this little piece of power. Oh no, you can't go on the cruise. You're not allowed to leave the country without letting me know. We've gone on one other cruise, and she tried to last minute hold it over where she changes her mind. Everything I get done in writing.
Yeah, you have
Um,
to.
but this was a small cruise with her friend, and she just wouldn't let us go. It gave no reason. Once was, well, she's going to need braces. Like, that's in like 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Like, it's not on your time sharing. It has nothing to do with you. Like, why would you not let her go with her best friend on a cruise for their birthday, which is in the same month? Like, why are you spiteful to the child to hurt me? So she couldn't go there. Then I also had informed her of another trip that we were going to DC for my nephew's bar mitzvah. So she also said no to that one. But, I'm going and I'm taking her. I don't care. So I file to the courts, for travel because she said no. She files against it to get it dismissed that we need to seek a parenting coordinator. So I send her a list of parenting coordinators and pick a parenting. She refuses to pick a parenting coordinator. I file a motion to the courts to make her pick a parenting coordinator. She refuses to have that one be heard. So she's dragging this on until the day of the trip. So I did everything I possibly could to try to get heard by the courts, and I took her and left, and we went anyway. And of course, she calls the police on my house. She calls the police in Washington, D.C. at the hotel. And the hotel, they show up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's not like she didn't know we went. She called and talked to her daughter that night, you know, and yet she calls and doesn't. Now, mysteriously, fire alarm goes off on the 8th floor where we happened to be staying. And they had a fire issue called in. So one person at the front desk says that it might have been somebody smoking pot in the stairwell. Somebody else said that it was called into the fire department.
Holy shit.
So I don't know. Coincidence, whatever. We'll chalk it off to that. But she did have the police come banging on the doors at 2:30 in the morning for
Wow.
the cops to say, "Is the kid here?"
And now
Yes.
what was that?
Goodbye.
Was it a wellness check?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So yeah, it's not like they're gonna take her back and be like, we need to go back to Florida.
Nope. No. And yeah, right. So it's a civil matter, but just that, that's what she put. And I mean, we've had wellness checks 20, 30 times. They come. I know the cops by front name. I have a motorcycle and sidecar because I take my kid out on the motorcycle. And one of the cops has a motorcycle and sidecar. So he typically, when he gets the call and he hears the address, he'll come by. We'll get the bike and we'll just chit chat and we'll talk about it. And this is some other shit. It's just every time she tries to throw shit at me, it just doesn't stick, man.
It's just
You know,
it must be so frustrating and annoying though. It's like because again, think about your child.
Yes, that's where I am a fresh. I can take this. Listen, I've been a big boy. My whole life has been prepped for getting the shit beat out of me. Um, so it doesn't. But when you take it out on our daughter, and you don't let her enjoy time with her family in another state, when you won't let her go and explore and travel the world, when you don't bring her to school, when you refuse to get her eyes checked. I just went and took her to get her eyes checked, and come to find out she needs glasses. And my kid's like, "Oh my God, Daddy, thank you." Like, "Oh my God, I can see things." Like, yeah, so I never wanted to. I wouldn't wear my glasses as a kid. So, but her generation is like, she's been dying for braces.
Isn't
She's
that
been
funny? My
begging
kid's
to
the
get
same
them.
same thing. Yeah.
Right. And, we had big issues with getting her teeth pulled. So she had two teeth that were coming in already behind, not going to push out the babies. Totally needed to go. Mother wouldn't let me get it done. For a year, I've been fighting. I have the dentist. I have the appointments. I take her to all of her stuff. You know, um, and she just refuses. Finally, she makes an appointment in another county, which I'm going to bring up in this next case. That in itself, right there, by taking her to another doctor in a whole other county, is within itself a contempt of the um, relocating the child, which is what she was in contempt for the first time, because she's technically relocating the child when she enrolled her with a doctor out there. So this is two doctors in one school that she's attempted, along with the five or six motions to relocate that have been turned down from that location.
Yeah, and after hearing you talk about this whole situation too, and it's like not once have you said you want to take the child away
I
from
don't.
her.
I honestly, I like 50-50. I
Right.
think married couples should do 50-50. I think they should try it out every once in a while and just be like, "Oh, babe, sorry, not my day with the kids. You got to pick them up. You got to go places. You got to do your shit. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to do my gym. I'm going to go to work late. I'm going to do my stuff, but next week I'll get them. I work hard. I'm grateful I got to start my own business. And so when I have her, I have to pick her up. Or like this week, my girlfriend, so I took her out of daycare because the daycare wasn't doing enough with education after school. It was just fun, which is great for the kid. But when your child's already behind and needs extra help, keeping her in a daycare is not the right thing. So I took her out of the daycare and I kept her at the house. So she takes the bus home from school. She comes over to my house. I have a tutor that comes a few days a week to go over her homework and make sure that she just stays focused. A lot of her trouble is she needs to run around or do something and not be active or look at her iPad. Her games, she can sit and play, but everything else she's got to be bouncing off the walls for. And so I get the tutor. The tutor comes by twice a week on my weeks. I take her to a private tutor that's a little more dyslexia orientated, Norton Gillingham, and more procedural stuff for her education on my weeks, because those are the only weeks that I can control that she'll be there. So again, the mother doesn't take her a lot of times. My tutor shows up. I got to still kick the lady a couple bucks for showing up, even though the kid's not there. Because I don't always get notified when she's not there. Um, but just a lot of doesn't care. She doesn't contribute or pay to the tutor. She doesn't even believe that I have a tutor. Um, she had issues with the daycare when she wanted to try to put her in there for her weeks, because she made that comment about she can take down the daycare when she worked for the state. So the daycare lady was like, I don't want you or your kid in my school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So she just didn't take her. Now, supposedly she kept the mother's tuition, which isn't fair, by stating that I owe a bill. Now, I've asked this lady for 2 years, if there's a bill that I owe you, please just send it to me, because she was getting paid from the state for the kid to be there. So she also upped her rates, but some of us had been there before she owned the place. So I never got a bill. If I owed you money, and she had stated like, rates are going to go up. Okay, but send me a bill, send me a bill, send me a bill. We're talking 2 years almost without a bill. I'm not gonna pay you something. So I don't, according to me, I don't owe you anything. According to the baby's mom, she claims that you kept her money because there was an outstanding balance. So show me if there is, or she's lying. I don't know, but she brings stuff up like that to the courts.
Man, I thought, I mean, my situation's shitty, but god damn.
No, I take, and you know, we get into. I sent you the link. Did you ever watch the link for Judge Judy?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. A while back. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the kid's 2 years old. I've got full custody. I'm working full time. You know, I'm doing as much side hustling as I can. Just everything going into it. She gets the call for going on Judge Judy. She filed to do it. You know, all the stuff. So I'm like, listen to the pitch. You know, they pay for the trip, they pay per diem, you get a little bit of upfront money, and then they pay the settlement. I'm like, okay, $5,000 is the maximum amount that you can allot for in small claims. I filed a $5,000 countersuit against her, and we had to actually postpone the first hearing because it wasn't done. I didn't have all my stuff together, and you know, so we go out there, we do the show, and I get just ass rammed by Judge Judy. She was all in my favor the whole way. First of all, she read the charges that she filed against me in Virginia, and she opens up with like, did you know what I used to do? I was a family lawyer. You know, I don't believe what you filed against this man in another state. Like, this is absolutely insane that you would even do this kind of thing. Like, you know, so she was against her from the very beginning. But then she was like, I didn't know I was being countered because she didn't have any of her documentation. I'm like, well, here's the court order. Oh, you know, here's this judgment. I've got this. I'm ready. You know, and she's like, well, Miss, why don't you have any of your stuff? Oh, I didn't know what I was being coming here for. Well, yes, you did. That's why we postponed this shit. Like, and the only piece of paper I didn't bring, like the day I left, downpour, raining, mom's watching the baby. I'm going to the airport, flying out of Fort Lauderdale. I get a letter from the sheriff's office. I open it up. I'm like, okay, I'm not in any trouble. It just said that she had been served. So I put it on the counter, last bags in the car, and I'm driving to Fort Lauderdale in the rain to get on the plane for the red eye or to fly there, air in the morning, and then I take the red eye home to go back to work
Oh
when I
god.
arrive. Listen, I got a kid. You know, you got to go to work. This wasn't a pleasure trip for me. She stayed out there for the whole week. You know, spent a couple extra days at the beach. You know, and took all of her time there. But you know, I'm raising the kid. Um, and you know, the one thing that she asked was like, well, how do you know? You know, she wasn't served. She's like, oh, I wasn't served. My roommate got it. Well, in Florida, that's being considered served. And that paperwork that I got, if I would have brought it, would have been my proof that she was served. And because I didn't have that, she didn't want to pay the $5,000. So she dismissed her shit and then told me that we had to go back to finish this in Florida, which of course it went nowhere because that's a TV show,
Yeah.
right? This isn't meant for an actual judge. This is meant for a mediator TV show. So she dicked me out of $5,000. If I run into her on Palm Beach, I'm going to totally let her know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my dream is to run into her out here and just be like, you little midget. She is smaller than you think. She looks like the Keebler elf when she comes out from behind that little wooden wall.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just
Jesus.
like I couldn't believe it. But you know, I didn't put up a big enough fight. They want to see a
Of
show,
of course.
and
Yeah.
I wasn't there for that. I was just there to get my money.
Yeah.
$5,000 would have covered half of my legal expenses at that point, and I was grateful to have thought I was going to get it. But, you know, and then she thinks I blew the whole thing because she was going to get the money.
So where are you guys at now? Is it still 50-50? I mean, obviously you're still
So
going,
it's
going
still
in and out of court.
50-50. It's 1 week on, 1 week off.
Okay.
She's moved more than 50 miles away. So it makes it very difficult for her to drive all the time. That's why she misses a lot of school.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Um, also, the kid can't go into any after school programs because soccer is every week, gymnastics is every week. You know, I put her in some play in a day stuff at the Maltz Theater out here when it's available. Um, you know, we get into whatever little activities that we can. Um, but you know, she relentlessly files day after day to take her away from me full time and get paid. She just filed so I won the contempts that she filed against me. We had 2 hour court case. She spent an hour and 45 minutes. I got about 15 minutes. The judge was continually like, make a point, make a point, make a point, make a point. He's like, listen, the father attempted everything he possibly could have to try to get the permission to go to the courts. The document even states that, you know, they're not supposed to be unreasonably withheld travel.
Yep.
Right. And literally, we've asked her what the reasons are, and she can't give one. She says, I'll only give the judge the reason. That was her answer in an email that, I'm not going to give you a reason. So to me, that's the clear definition of unreasonably withheld travel. So even in the judge's order that he wrote was like, we're not going to find the father in contempt because we don't want to give the mother more ammunition to continually try to go after him.
Jesus. So they see it, but damn.
Right. And I don't know how much they remember from the last one. Like, is this judge going to remember that, she gave her all these opportunities to make her case before and didn't?
Right.
And now so back to that. So I won the case, not held in contempt, feel good. She files to vindicate that magistrate's order to the judge. And now the judge hears it. Now, she also added another 32 points of evidence different than the original ones, and some of them that even counter each other.
Oh my
to this note. So I have to prepare myself for all 32 new allegations that are written inside this motion, and some of them that happened already after. So she can't bring up things that have happened since the filing. She's already tried to. I learned that from the last court date and rereading the transcripts.
But you have to sit there and read all of that and figure out like, oh, she did this before then.
Now at night, I have to reread the same case I had already sat through and relive it again. I have complete post-traumatic stress disorder from the Judge Judy episode. Completely baffled me that I can watch the episode and see where my stomach literally fell. I almost walked off the entire episode when she started saying like, oh, well, you'll have to take this back. And, no, there's no proof that she was served. Like after everything I was showing you and everything you were agreeing to, all of a sudden now, because there's no proof that she was served, you're going to dismiss all of this?
Yeah.
Like your producers knew we rescheduled to hear this. Like, and I should have said that. I would have totally put her producers under the under the bus. But so that was tough for a while, that loss. But just going to court after court. But it's good recognition. I mean, because everybody knows Judge Judy. I've been to a few other countries, and, I mentioned I've been on Judge Judy, and they're like,
Yeah.
So, and I can WhatsApp them like instantly. So, they're all pretty amazed.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. I'm sorry to hear that you're just still going through like just so much.
Oh, she's gonna come after me until she's 18 years old.
Right. And it sucks for your daughter, man. Like she can't even join a soccer team or a basketball team.
She's gonna learn that these are the things that are creating issues. The husband that she's with now and her argue a lot. Of course, me and him haven't spoken any words at all ever, and it's like you're the next closest thing to a father figure that my kid's gonna have in her life, and you and I can't even say two words to each other. You've literally called police for an escort because you're worried of what you would do to me. That's what he says. I call the police because I'm worried of what I would do to you. Now, this also come to find out recently because I've got my kid in therapy that she talks to somebody from the state. He slammed her dog on the ground and the dog was hurt and she was worried. And one of the things that he told her was that the reason he hits the dog is because he's not allowed to hit her.
Jesus. She told that to the therapist?
Yes.
Wow.
And so they opened up an investigation against her, right? Where's the irony in the, the working for DCF filing a case against me and now, under the grace of God, just it happening against her.
Yeah. And it wasn't you filing, it's the therapist filing, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that makes it 10 times better.
But, there's nothing that they were able to prove or find.
Wow.
So it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
Most of those do, I didn't expect much from it other than, look what can happen. But, I'm waiting for that report to come back to me. It's just so much, man. There's so many hoops to go through with the state, and there's no help for fathers. It is very difficult for fathers out there. I see why certain dads are considered a deadbeat dad. Not many guys would go through the torture that I had been through and not just got up and left. So they're forced out of the situation for their paycheck. They're not allowed to be in the lives because they have emotional trauma that they do to the children. My kid has to tell me all sorts of things that's like, no, that's not true. So, and I teach my daughter, I'm like, always be asking questions. If there's anything that I can teach you in life is always follow up something with a question. Because if you're hiding nothing, your questions won't, your answers won't change to those questions. And the more detail, and if they make something up and you ask a lot of questions about it, the harder it's going to be for them to continually make up a new part to that story. As for if it's something that's real.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm sure she sees everything that's going on.
and she catches a lot of it,
Yeah.
and I've got a new girlfriend, and we're collective. Uh, we don't argue, we don't fight. So she hears the yelling, the screaming, coffee pots breaking, eggs
At the other
slamming
house.
at the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
So I just feel bad for my kid. Why can't she get the therapy that she requires? Why can't she get, treatment for, dyslexia and ADHD and, being able to stay focused? And, it shouldn't be a battle to go get her teeth cleaned or to go get, her appointment. So, like her mother's missed, I had an appointment for her shots that I didn't tell you about, but, it ended up being on your week. Can you go? Like, she only tells me some of this stuff, and then she takes me to court for it, right? For all the shit that she's done. I made this appointment with the dyslexic, without letting her know. Well, and the judge even said to her, well, what about the results? Like, don't you care about what the results were more than the fact that she went to the appointment? So, like, I go to this appointment and I don't help her out. I'm not even in the room. The kid is with the lady for like 3 hours each time. Door closed, me not there.
Yep.
Like, so that's what she missed. Last week I took her to go get her eyes checked, right? So, her mother had a prescription to see an optometrist. Never took her for the whole year. So I texted her, hey, I'm going to go get my eyes checked. I'm going with Skylar. Did you get hers done yet? No response. So while I was there, hey, how much for the kid? Get it done. Do it, right? Got it done. Oh, she's got astigmatism. She really needs some glasses. Okay, order them. I didn't bill the mom. I didn't tell her she owes me half, but she's on my case because I didn't tell her about the appointment.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn, it seems like it's just never going to end, like you said, till she's 18.
Right. Once she realizes that legally there's no way to get any more money, and again, I'm going to have to go for full custody. I did not want to. I really don't want to. I really love 50-50. I'm a big believer in 50-50, but if she's going to miss 30 to 40 days of school every year.
I can't believe it's taken the judge this long to go through that, because that's insane. I mean,
they haven't gotten to it yet. So when I get to the court date this 31st, I literally want to ask for an audit of my filings. Like, what about docket number 306, and what about this docket? My things haven't been heard.
Yeah, man, I can only imagine how frustrating that is, and to keep going through it all. But it seems like you're a really, really, really good dad, and you're showing your daughter.
I get that a lot. So for her birthday, so she really likes Nightmare Before Christmas, and so I painted and designed her room in a Nightmare Before Christmas theme instead of taking her on the cruise.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'll show you. This is the wall. Over here is wallpaper.
Jesus.
Right? I did a mural with a cutout of Jack and Sally. That's 3-dimensional. Right, we got black and white stripes. I made a coffin bookshelf.
Wow.
For her, and then we set up the fish tank.
Is that in the wall?
No, it's just a thin.
Got
thin
it.
One. And then I've got these are 3-dimensional with lights that are behind them. And
Jesus,
it's probably not here, but we have a black light, and I think we just had it out because we were looking for plutonium glass at flea markets. But I ghosted an Oogie Boogie into the moon, so when you turn off the lights and you shine the black light on it, you'll see the Oogie Boogie.
That is awesome. Oh my God.
So instead of a cruise, I took her room and I remodeled it for her.
That is sweet.
No more little princess stuff.
Yeah.
But it's those things that she'll remember. I mean, it's just a room. It's just 4 walls, but to her, that's it's a really cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that is awesome.
So
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story. You have a hell of a story.
yeah, it was long. I get it. It took a while, but I hope it was worth it because I probably needed to get it off my chest too. It is a lot to go after this, and I know that there's a lot of guys that continually have these court issues raised against them. And again, remember the first thing they're going to do is plead that you did something, that you physically touched them, some sort of abuse, because, and I'll tell you why, the state will pay for an abused mother's legal fees. So if she claims abuse, now she can get legal coverage, for, legal aid. Society will kick in if you're that. I went there to
Yeah.
go get legal aid, and I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the system needs to change, man.
So,
It's crazy.
so I am all about fathers' rights. Standing up for it. Like I don't cite much cases, but she puts a lot of stuff inside of her motions that I use. So I
You
use all
against
of
her.
her own crap. Right. But now that I got rid of the lawyers that just weren't getting much done either. You know, we kept filing, we kept trying to get our legal expenses. He kept telling me like, "Oh, it's going to be a tough thing. We're probably not going to get it." And then we win. And he's like, "Oh, well, you're never going to collect." And it's like,
Right.
what
Yeah.
am I paying? So you're not collecting. And that's what ended up happening. So, you have to do it in the beginning. I mean, because when it's your kid and you
Yeah.
don't know about the law, like you got no choice. They're going to completely steamroll you, especially when they have lawyers. Like I got lucky, and mine's just a moron. And she thinks she knows the legal system. And it used to get to me like, oh my God. But I realized she was drumming up my legal expenses. Right. So she was sending emails to my lawyer. She was filing stuff that they had to recombat. And she filed more stuff on top of that. And, he had to file something as an answer. So it just was racking up bills
Yeah.
after
And that
bills.
tactic does work. You know what I mean? Like that will destroy some people. But again, if you go pro se and you have the time to learn that stuff, then you kind of solve that problem.
I was in it long enough to pick up what I should and shouldn't. And again, this is just my story. So I'm going to just tell it from my heart. Nobody's going to fight harder for my daughter than I am. And that's where I'm at right now is that I need to put this money towards her education. The tutor is expensive. The dyslexic teacher is even more money. The testing was a lot of money. Glasses cost me a lot of money. Like, I'd rather
Yeah.
put this
Yeah.
there than a lawyer. I'll show up. I'll dress up. Luckily I don't have to go to work. I will, work when I can. And most of all, my clients love my daughter. They support, they give extra money, they buy her things, so, it gets by, but not having to pay the lawyers and taking the time off to do it myself is worth it.
Yeah. Especially when he's not doing 100% of his job. So,
Right. And you figure it out. Now, again, my girlfriend's great with typing in English. So I kind of put together what I want to say and she makes it sound really professional and
yeah.
good, so that it does help. I know it's tough because some guys, I'm not really good on the computers.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you
So
got to use those AI programs, put in what you want and have
it's
it
going
make
to
it sound
come
a
there.
little
No,
more professional.
AI lawyer, I totally wanted to design a program that will read all my emails from her, all my text messages, date and timestamp, all of it, and completely put it together in here's a contempt, here's what she did, here's when she did it, and here's how many times it was done, and just put it through an entire thing. So,
Awesome, man. Well, thank
got
you for
lucky.
jumping on the podcast, brother. I
Thanks,
really
Dan.
appreciate it. You have a hell of a story, and I hope I hope it gets better for you.
I hope so too, and
Yeah,
we'll catch back up in another time frame. And
definitely.
if anybody else has got a story that beats mine, you call me up and let
Dude,
me
I don't
know.
think so.
You call me up and let me know that my throne has been debunked, and then I'll add the things I'm holding,
Right. Get back on
the
top.
cards up my sleeve still.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, good talking with you,
All
brother.
right, Dan.